and our liberty.
Welcome to Your Right to Know by the Fitchburg Republican City Committee. My name is Mary Lotze, and I am your co-host for this evening's show. This is a very special honor for the Fitchburg Republican City Committee tonight because we have a couple of local celebrities, and I'm going to introduce them now. Before I say that, though, I'd like to just say the theme for our show is the faces behind the microphone.
Oh.
So there are people out in our viewing audience who may recognize your voice before they recognize certainly your face or your name, David Martinez from WPKZ Radio for the Morning Pulse on AM 1280 and FM 105.3. And David is the morning host, 7 to 9. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. Hi, David. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on the show.
Well, thank you for coming. Justin Brooks, of course, is our second guest tonight, and Justin is a familiar face to not only the FRCC, but also to the show Your Right to Know. Justin, of course, is from Leominster, and Justin, welcome to you also.
Thank you.
Now, my co-host, who also is a face behind the radio, but because Joyce Jacobs is our producer, director, executive engineer for Your Right to Know, she can't join us tonight. So Joyce is in our control room. Wave, Joyce, hi. Say hello, Joyce. That's the other face that you may be, you may know the voice, but you may not be aware of the face when we have our monthly radio show, the FRCC on WPKZ, the first Thursday every month, first Thursday of the month every month from 7 to 8 o'clock a.m. And we had our first show with David and the Morning Pulse this past April. And after our April show, I would like to think that we did so well on the show that you've asked us back every month. And we've been on your show monthly since that time in April.
Yeah,
and
it was a great experience.
Well, it was a great experience for us, and we truly want to thank you, and that's why in part we have you on today to sort of express our gratitude for being on, because we realize that not every committee or organization in the city of Fitchburg, or Leominster for that matter, has the opportunity to be on a well-listened to radio station in north central Massachusetts every month, and for that we really thank you.
You're welcome.
But what I'd like to do now is allow you a moment to introduce yourself and tell the audience, the listening audience and the viewing audience, how did you get to radio? How did you get to Fitchburg?
Well, I've been in radio since 1988. I don't know what the math is, but it's over 25 years-ish. I originally got into radio, when I was in high school, I played high school football and I got hurt, and at one point ended up in the booth filming the games for the team, and the radio station that did the halftime show, one of the play-by-play guy left during halftime, and the color guy was kind of stuck there. He was coming back from a commercial break, and he said, "Well, I guess you're on with me." So I did the halftime show with the guy, and that kind of the buzz. Plus, as a kid, you played at that time records, which some may not know what those are. But playing records as a kid, I got my uncle's 45s and did radio that way too. So that kind of started the process for me. So I worked at various radio stations over the years, and I've been at WPKZ for about 17 months now.
Okay.
And the station I was at prior was sold, and everyone was let go, except myself and a couple other people. We kind of stayed with it until it officially changed over with the FCC.
Sure.
And at that point, I switched over. In fact, I worked at both places for a couple of weeks there towards the end.
A little transition.
A little transition, which made a couple of long weeks, but here I am.
Well, and we're thrilled to have you locally with us.
Thank you.
Justin, of course, I know you from Leominster, politics, campaign manager, candidate for public office yourself. How the heck did you ever get to be this guy's sidekick on Thursday mornings? I look at you as the radio Ed McMahon to
Ooh,
Johnny Carson. Now,
wow.
how's that for a metaphor?
Wow, she can
honor.
stay.
I need to get his laugh, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one, Johnny.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, how I started is it's kind of funny. We it's through politics. I came into the studio. We started recording some of my commercials for my campaign.
Oh, okay.
And we just had some fun with it, and it just seemed like a good start. And then we did some post-election interviews, stuff like that. And then I think a few months went by, and I was like, hey, whatever happened? Am I going to be on the show again? He's like, yeah, we can get you on next week. I was like, okay, cool, I'll show up. And then, then another few weeks, like 3-4 weeks went by, and I was like, am I going to come on again? Pretty much had to track him down and like.
We're very busy.
What does Howard Carr always say? When the phone don't ring, you'll know it's David.
That's good. I like that.
You actually touched on it a little bit, David, in your opening when you talked about records. You used to play records. And
absolutely.
of course, as I grew up, I'm obviously quite a bit older than both of you, but as I grew up, there wasn't probably a small city in the United States, certainly not large cities, that didn't have one or more radio stations. And it went from music, top 40, to talk, to sports, to whatever. And now that's a rarity. So I believe that we are blessed to have local radio. How do you see local radio and the part that local radio and the local radio media can play in a community such as Fitchburg-Leominster?
Well, I think that you made a good point where there used to be so many outlets for media, and it's kind of gotten concentrated really since the mid-90s with the Telecommunications Act. It kind of consolidated the business. I think the way that the local radio can work in a community, and really you need to do it in an area like we have. We always talk about the 3 cities and even the smaller towns in the area. You need to be spread out as much as you can with the few people that we have. So I think radio today, you need to understand, first of all, it's not just Fitchburg's radio station. And a lot of people growing up, you grew up with your station in your town, and you kind of regarded it as yours in your town only.
People still refer to it as WEIM.
Absolutely, and they refer to it as Fitchburg's radio station, and some people need to be told that the signal does travel. So I think that the best thing that a local radio station can do is keep as involved with the local communities with an S, as possible, and that's what we try to do on the show. We try to encompass, we bring Fitchburg, Gardner, Lunenburg. We try to get as many communities involved as we can.
And you do that, in fact, because of your guest, routine guest.
Right.
The mayors of all 3 towns.
Right.
The police chiefs
Police
and
chief.
police personnel.
Right.
Are there other people that you routinely book that
We have
bring
Jen
in the
Benson
different?
in once a month.
So that's our state representatives.
State rep in, and we're beginning to reach out to other, politically, reach out to other people too, and try to get some sort of schedule and sort of consistency. I mean, that's one of the things with radio is you need to be consistent.
Sure.
That's why we have Justin in every Thursday, as opposed to once a month.
Well, I know we were talking before we started, is that one of the benefits that we see of having Justin on is that when Joyce and I are on together, we can maybe make the hour a little too focused on just Fitchburg, and yet our audience is much broader. So by having Justin there, I think we bring in that little bit of a flavor of Leominster, but just other ideas to the conversation, so we're not so connected and limited to
that's an
Fitchburg.
excellent point. That's one of the things you shouldn't do with local radio is be too focused on one community. And even when you're on, we have a decent format was we talk Fitchburg, we talk about this show, the next segment we kind of bring in statewide issues.
Right.
And a lot of times we talk about national issues,
Sure.
and Justin certainly chimes in. But that's kind of how the flow goes with the show, and I think people they've gotten used to that.
Well, and I've actually learned a lot even about Leominster. In not that I'm not familiar with Leominster, but when we are talking about some issues of Fitchburg, and Justin provides some insight into Leominster's, the same issue, but from the Leominster perspective. I mean, it's not only educational for the guests, it's educational for us, and helps us broaden our ideas of what's going on.
Yeah, one of the things I like about it is because, Leominster and Fitchburg, the Twin Cities, they seem to mirror each other quite a bit, population, and when you start to look at it, they're completely different in a lot of different things. And the solutions to really make them thriving communities are drastically different too. But it's kind of fun to have that, kind of back and forth of what might work, what sources to tap into from a different perspective.
But we need to learn from each other.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There are positives and negatives to both communities, and some of that we need to learn. What are they doing in Leominster? What are they doing in Fitchburg that the other side could benefit from?
What works, what doesn't work.
I was actually surprised. I heard something the other day about this whole casino thing in the Cordish company. And one of the things that Fitchburg requested is $50,000, I believe it was, from the Cordish company to help do some studies, some safety and traffic flow studies and things like that in Fitchburg. And to my knowledge, Cordish came back and said, you're not a neighboring community. And I kind of went like, did I get that right? Did I understand that right? I'm not sure what they look at as a neighboring community. Granted, where they're putting the casino, where they want to site that, isn't co-located like it is with Lancaster or Sterling. But still, we are a neighboring community, and people come down from New Hampshire and in from Gardner and Westminster or Athol, Ashburnham, places like that. They would conceivably travel through Fitchburg and create traffic flows at different times of the day or night. So I think it's kind of interesting. Now, David, you've been there 17 months. This is something that we need to learn also from the Fitchburg Republican City Committee perspective. How do you build an audience? You're new. The station just kind of transitioned over not too long before, from WEIM, local Fitchburg, to WPKZ, larger audience, tri-towns and cities, communities. How do you build an audience?
Well, I think some of the things we touched on is consistency, creating a program. In our case, the morning show's local program. The Daily Pulse is a local program focusing on local, regional issues, state, and then eventually national issues. But you really need to be consistent. You need to be as consistent as possible. I know we have different guests in, like you're in once a month, but we know that the first Thursday you're there. So building that consistency is good. Reaching out to the communities is good. The mayors, police chiefs, other political leaders is always a good idea. We cover local sports as much as we can, and we try to do as much local programming as we can based on the staff that we have. We don't have a tremendous staff, so it makes it a little more difficult, but the consistency is a big issue. Pick a format and go.
Yeah, one of the things that we're even trying, because on the Friday show you got the what's that one? What's this?
The game.
The game.
Yes or BS.
Yeah, yes or BS they have over there, and we just created a new segment on our show that is called the social shout out. So basically, people, the listeners have a chance to chime in through social media, and then we get to say it over the air. But that's something we do regularly too, that is kind of fun, quick, punchy, and and people can look forward to.
So how do
week by
people
week.
get involved in this social shout out?
We post a question on Wednesday morning on both Justin's Facebook and the station's Facebook, WPKZ Radio on Facebook. Like us. And so we let it sit all day Wednesday, and then Thursday morning in the last half hour of the show, we have a fancy intro. And we talk about the question that we posted, and we mention everyone's names, first name usually, and last initial, whatnot. And it's just another way to get building the audience, another form to try to get more people involved in the show.
And now, do things like that work? I don't want to call it a gimmick, but we'll just call it games, because people seems now with computers, people like this kind of interactive thing.
Right, that's exactly what it is. You want to give the people the ability to have some ownership of the show. And if you have both the ability to read the question and post on a Facebook page, and then it gets read on the air, they feel like they're part of the show. So that's the idea behind it. You can't, I think at a small station you can't do that too much, because people kind of get worn on it. So one day a week is probably good. I talk about it a little on Wednesday, and then we talk about it on Thursday, and then we move on. What
about taking calls? Have you ever thought of doing that?
Yeah, we try to elicit calls, and usually when people are aggravated enough, they'll call me. They will, which is fine.
Can you put them on the air when they're aggravated?
Yeah, no, I absolutely do. I don't have a problem in talking with people that are, they're aggravated or happy. It doesn't matter to me, but I have no problem doing it either way. I mean, I freely give out the email. Yeah. In fact, I did just the other day, and it was as simple. If you're happy, you can email me, and if you're upset with something, go ahead and email me too. We take both sides.
I noticed he did that, though, when I laid out a very opinionated political piece. And so I'm
always
wondering what the
very-
feedback's going
I'm
to
always-
be.
Yeah,
Do you get a lot of feedback? Do you,
we get people who come in daily as part of the Smart Shopper program that we have on
Oh, yes,
Saturdays. So
yes.
they'll come
That's
in
a
daily.
very
and
popular.
It is, and I'm out there frequently, and they'll mention, they'll hear my voice and say, hey, you're the guy.
yeah.
So we start conversations.
Sure.
And every now and again, I had one guy, and I don't even know who it was at this point. He said, you really only upset me once. And he said, I forget, it couldn't have been that bad because he couldn't remember what it was. But I said, you should call me and yell at me.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Now, from your perspective, is that good or bad? I mean, you must want a certain small percentage or a percentage of your audience to have some sort of emotion to
Sure.
things you put out, I would
Right.
imagine, because if everybody's sitting there kind of placid and just listening, you're probably
Right.
wondering,
There-
am I doing my job?
Yeah, there are fewer people that call radio stations. I think even the big stations have, they call them P1s. It's generally the same people that call.
Yes.
So, I mean, that can be hit or miss. While we'll take calls, absolutely, and certainly appreciate them one way or the other. It doesn't matter what side they're on, if they're upset or not. But you want some to a certain degree, and that's probably something we could do better too, is kind of try to elicit more phone calls.
Well, it probably would be hard. How many of your programs during your week would you have guests? Because you want to give an adequate amount of time to the guest you're interviewing.
Sure.
And how do you do that at the same time you're taking phone calls? Because that takes a certain amount of time.
It does, and then it can be off topic too. If someone wants to talk about a certain topic, callers, and this happens everywhere, have their own, I want to say agenda, but not in a bad way. They have their questions they want to ask, and they may not even be associated with the direction that the show is going in. So that's another, can be tough.
Well, I remember we had one show recently where we actually did have some callers on the social shout out, which was kind of cool. You know, you can also don't have to just use social
Yeah, you
media. You
don't,
can actually
right.
call
Oh,
out.
okay.
And it was kind of funny because we sectioned off a certain amount of time, and then all of a sudden we were getting the calls, and then all of a sudden I had to read the list of like the people that actually responded
Sure,
socially.
sure.
So I'm like, I got to burn through this.
Right, right.
So
Yeah, because
we
we're
were
always
pressing for
watching.
time.
Yeah, we're always watching the clock. I mean, we try to do during the whole week. I try to do one segment, one topic is essentially the point. So you're not kind of bouncing around. So that segment it kind of got extended because, but which is a good thing. We were very busy, so that made us feel good that okay, we struck a correct nerve in the question,
Sure.
and that's always the conversation. We start talking on Tuesday morning sometimes. So where do you want to go? Do you want,
Right.
Yeah.
There are multiple questions that we go over before we post to try to get the most response. So.
When I think of WPKZ, and this was, I'm sure it was WEIM at this time, but we had the very bad ice storm back in December of 2008.
Yes.
Our only lifeline were for people who had the old-fashioned battery-operated transistor radio
Right.
and could listen to the local radio, because those two, I'll call them radio host, talk show host, they did yeoman's duty. I mean, they were on almost 24/7. They were interviewing the mayors. They were interviewing Unitil and National Grid and firemen and police, and they were just trying to be a lifeline, a safety outline, a safety outlet for residents who were displaced and living in cold and dark environment, trying to tell us the latest, when we could get our power back, where could we go, things like that. I've been in your studio now a number of times through our show. You have a TV going in the back. How able are you at any one time, if a calamity were to happen during your show, that you would be able to all of a sudden re-gin your program
Right.
and go right to that local calamity and start reporting on it? Is that something that you see your role as, or could you do it, or is that kind of out of the bailiwick of?
No, we certainly could, and I think radio people love doing that. I know in 2008, when Ben slept at the station, it seemed like for 3 weeks, and we had a generator going,
Sure.
and
Because you lost power too, the station's
yeah, the power was
towers went
gone.
down.
The city of Fitchburg gave us a generator, and we were able to stay on, which was very important, as you said, just to get the information out and get people an idea of what was
It was
happening.
the only resource.
Where you need to go, what's happening, this is going to happen tomorrow, this isn't going to happen, that kind of thing. But we did it just after the marathon bombings, when the shootout in the street happened. If you remember,
Oh,
it
sure.
happened Thursday night into Friday morning. So when I got up to go to work, I'm driving in the car at 3 in the morning, and I'm listening to it kind of unfold as I'm driving in. So at that point, I'm already starting to refocus what the show was going to be about that Friday. And I contacted the people who were on Friday and said, we're going wall to wall this. So, I'm not even doing the news. I'm not. So we had our computers up on different sites trying to gather information. We had, one guy watching one side, another guy watching another, and I was watching. You've been in the studio. I have 5 computers around me. So that's exactly what we did. That was at that point I made the decision that this is what we're doing.
And it would be some time like that you would call in Justin if you needed extra help or somebody else to provide.
Yeah, well, as a matter of fact, I got calls from people saying, do you want me to come in? Do you need help? Yeah, which was nice. It was nice to get people in. So I had, it happened during vacation week, so I had some family members at home watching different things and sending email and text messages of different things. So we had, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 different sources, but that's a radio person's dream. They love that kind of stuff.
Well, but it's also good to know that you do have that ability from a radio station personnel to, just like that, change the focus of your show and sort of recalibrate it to something that's very timely of emergency, alert, safe national security or local security relevance.
Yeah.
Well, what's also kind of interesting too is when you look at the TV, like local TV during those times, it's a big shift too, because normally it's everything scripted and all that.
Right, very much.
And so now you have like this big thing that you have to report on, and now you can see them. They're kind of like
they're scrambling
this
too.
could be this. They're having discussions, and it actually creates good radio, good television. When people can just go in and just.
Well, from the TV end too, I think you really see who's very good at both ad-libbing, working on the fly, and who isn't, unfortunately. So you see that in those situations, because TV is more scripted than what we do.
Oh yeah.
Very much.
We just go off the cuff.
Yeah, we generally go off the cuff. Although we have topics that we have, and I have notes and such, but TV is very much scripted. So when you can see both good, bad, the ugly from the TV side.
From being in both now, my opportunities to do this show as well as my opportunities to do a radio, I've got to tell you, radio is a little easier because you're not sitting in front of a camera worrying about, am I going to flub up? Am I going to look silly? Am I going to have crazy expressions on my face that make me look a little manic or something? So there's almost a little more sense of control when your face can't be seen. At least that's my perspective, and maybe that's a woman's perspective. I don't know.
No, they're definitely different. They're both media, but they're definitely a different feel to them.
I think you can get more relaxed on radio because literally, I was getting more relaxed
He
earlier.
was.
Yeah, I was like recline, had the radio, had the microphone next to me. I was like, but it's good because it's comfy, and I can get in a good comfort zone, and we can have a good conversation and dialogue because of it.
Sure, and you can look at things like your computer while you're
That's a good point.
talking.
That's an excellent point.
And keep up on the news. Where I don't think our viewers would like it too much if all of a sudden now I flipped open my laptop and started reading. What's the latest on the Yahoo or something.
They're different, and that you're right. The computer thing is big. That's the ability to check something, to download a piece of music, or whatever you need to do is there.
How have you seen radio take a hit because of so many different media formats? Not, one time the radio was, its only competitor was TV, and then maybe the home phonograph where you'd listen to your own records. Now, it is computer, it's MP3. You go into a car, so many people don't even listen to the car radio any longer because you've got so many different opportunities to include the telephone where you can make phone calls and talk. How have you seen the whole look of radio change because of that? And what do you do to kind of adjust?
Well, adapting is key. Another thing is podcasts. People can do podcast. I can record from my house and do my own radio show at this point, as many people can. It's very easy to do. Software's gotten so cheap that anybody could do that. But adapting, what we're trying to do with the social shout out is try to reach as many different forms of media, Twitter, Facebook, our own webpage. You got to try to adapt and as much as you can because there is so much competition. There are other radio shows. There's satellite radio. There's just so many different ways to get information. You try the best you can to do a show to attract as many people. That's.
Justin, from when you ran locally and managed a campaign locally, how did you find the radio? Was that certainly in the local level, was that one of your best resources to get the word out, the message out?
Well, in campaigns, it's a little bit different because the way I look at campaigns, no single piece of media is going to like seal the deal. You know, you're not going to like say, I'm going to push out radio ads and I win the campaign. You know, but it does play a very important piece in that, because what you're trying to do is get that name recognition out there. You want the person, whenever they turn on the radio station, to be like, oh, there's that name. You know, oh, I drove by that sign. There's that name again. Oh, I picked up the paper. No, look, there it is right there again. You know, and so it does play that important role in that regard. And quite frankly, you know, I'll probably say I had probably one of the most fun experiences doing it, though, because, you know, going over and the different takes and like how to say it, and and I think I created different types of advertisements, you know, depending on what show it was on. So it was fun.
That's right.
David, we're almost to the end.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a minute
to
tell everyone in our listening audience who you are and about your show.
My name is David Martinez, WPKZ Radio, WPKZ.net. On Facebook, it's WPKZ Radio. Twitter, it's WPKZ Radio, if you get the trend. I do a show, Daily Pulse, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Local political guests, sports guests. We talk about local politics, national politics, and we do some fun things too, from the social shout-out to Yes or BS on Fridays. We have a really good crew during the course of the week. You need to check it out and listen to it. And we also have a great program on Saturday called the Smart Shopper Program, where you can get certificates from local establishments, local businesses, because we very much promote and ask people to shop locally, because that's really what drives the economy.
Thank you both. David, Justin, thank you both so much for being on with us.
Thank you for having us.
It is our honor and our pleasure and privilege to have you with us, so thank you. And while I sign off tonight, I just want to mention that we thank you for watching Your Right to Know and sitting here tonight with the FRCC. As we leave you, we want you to remember that your local city and town Republican Committee is the only grassroots organization that supports and holds dear your liberty, your constitutional rights, and your conservative values. We encourage you to join us. Why? Because we always stand for freedom. Thank you and good night.
America, we stand for freedom. So let us all unite to yearn and strive for our republic that reflects our values, that preserves our rights, and goes forth in power and might, that reflects our values and preserves our rights.